Hi everyone, I'm James Raffin, and this video is to provide context and background to help prepare us to make our own bag of possibles, which is something we'll need for future explorations. You know, in days gone by, when people were away from the resources of civilization so-called civilization for a long time, it was good to have a few possibles or essentials with you in a small bag that could be either tied to your belt or maybe tied up and put around your neck. In some cases, the bag of possibles, the bag of essentials, might contain flint and steel for making emergency fire, or it might contain a needle and thread to repair your clothing, or perhaps something for good luck. It's not that these things would mean the difference between life and death, although they might. They were there as much to remind travelers to be careful and not to take anything for granted when it comes to safe passage away from home. I first learned about this idea of a bag of possibles from an author called Robert Fulghum, who wrote an amazing little book called All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. He went on about things he'd learned in kindergarten, like share everything, don't hit people, put things back where you found them. But at one point he talked about this bag of essentials that he gave his sons when they started, well, maybe when they were teens, but when they were starting to explore on their own. A little bag of essentials that from their dad or from their parents that would help them on their way. But it was Fulghum who said, look, whatever you might put in the bag around your neck, the real essentials, and that's what he called them, are carried in the skin bag behind your eyeballs. That would be your head. And success in exploration, Fulghum said, was won by experience, imagination, courage, dreams, self-confidence, character. These personal qualities, or qualities of character, are what you really need when everything else fails and you have your bag of possibles to remind you of those personal qualities that you must have with you at all times. Now, like Robert Fulghum, my wife Gail and I gave a bag of possibles to our two girls when they turned 13, and in there, among other things, was a Swiss Army knife and some beach glass and some other family kind of essential things. Well, I think they had a flint and steel in it for making fire. And I don't know with those, but in doing that, we sort of said to our children that they needed all of those things. They needed resilience, they needed self-confidence, they needed experience, they needed imagination, but that this would remind them of home, it would remind them of the things they needed, it would remind them of the love of their parents, but it would also remind them about their own resilience. So on the occasion of making a bag of possibles for our daughters, both my wife and I had some treasures that we kept, to some things we would have in our pockets sometimes, but we made a bag of possibles too. And this is one of mine. It has an owl on the outside, which is a bird that's really, really important to me. But inside, and I'll just dump it out on the table here and you'll be able to see it, are just some things that are, I don't know, they're important to me, they're important along the way. There's the buckle of my old Boy Scout belt, that was profoundly important to me. There's my fire starter. It's also a set of tweezers, but it's a magnifying glass. You can magnify the sun and do that. I like having that in there. There are some original trade beads that a guy in St. Boniface, Manitoba gave me that I carry to remind me of the days when European people first came here. I'm a first-generation Canadian. I have a piece of quartz, which is a really beautiful but also powerful crystal that we have. I have a conker. I have a chestnut from a horse chestnut tree that was actually, it was planted, it was given to me, a chestnut that had sprouted. It was given to me by a nephew when he came here from England. We planted that, and eventually it took years and years, like 20 some years. It finally produced some chestnuts. No, wait, produced one chestnut. It's a couple of years ago, and that's it. I like that. I have a bloodstone from a friend of mine, and I actually have her writing. She called me Sturdy Trout. That's a long story, but she gave me this bloodstone because she thought it would be something that I would need on my travels, and she's since died. Her name was Jan Carrick, the Dragon Lady, and I carry that to remind me of her. I have this little sachet of tobacco, which was given to me by an Anishinaabe friend, and it was an important moment where we were talking, and he appreciated the kinds of things that we were talking about, and he gave me this, which I took to mean that he appreciated what I had to say, and as a gesture, it's a gesture for the Anishinaabe. Tobacco is a sacred herb, and so I carry that to remind me of that friendship, but also of the importance of tobacco. And of course, a guitar pick. You never know when you're going to need a guitar pick for something. So in preparation for making your own bag of possibles, which in your kit you'll have a suede lanyard and you'll have a piece of this, and I'm going to say more about that. But I thought we should get help in understanding how people of other cultures in North America might have used this idea. And to do that, I caught up with Debs Name, who is the Elder in Residence at Queen's University Faculty of Education. Deb is of Métis and Ojibwa background, and she talked about the Métis equivalent of a bag of possibles, which is a Sakatumat. You'll hear her talking about that, as well as the Ojibwa idea of a medicine bag, both of which serve similar purposes for explorers in those cultural traditions. It's a pandemic. Deb and I connected by Zoom not too long ago, and here's that conversation for you to set up your own bag of possibles, or perhaps your own Sakatumet, or maybe even if you're an Indigenous person, or if you have things that out of nature that you might want to carry with you, that you might consider having special powers. You might even want to consider Deb's idea of making a medicine bag. Here's that conversation. So I'm delighted that as Elder in Residence at the Faculty of Education, you're able to sort of add your voice to Science Rendezvous, which is originating, as it has for the last decade, at the Faculty of Education. But Deb, I want to take a crack at your name and talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to try to say this, and if you will indulge me. So Beijig Abska Maingen Gewe Tigabo. Is that anywhere?
Pretty close. Beijig is right. Wabshke.
Wabshke.
Wabshke. Maingen, you said that correctly. Gewe Tigabo. Gewe Tigabo.
Now, in the Queen's Journal piece announcing your hiring and your position, they use Maingen as sort of the diminutive of that bigger name. Is that kosher?
Oh, yeah. Well, because the Maingen part means wolf. So a lot of my friends, instead of like always saying one white wolf standing in all four directions, they just call me Wolf. I think when I got the name, I didn't really fully understand the depth of meaning of my name, but it's like at the time, I was thinking like the wolf is a teacher, and I was a teacher, and I always envisioned the standing in all four directions being equity work, because I spent so much time doing equity work, like running anti-racism workshops, anti-homophobia, Indigenous education workshops, like so much time doing equity work that I saw the four directions like being that work. But then in our Anishinaabe creation story, when the original man is lowered, a wolf takes him around and introduces him to all of the trees and plants and everything, and tells him all of the names, and a teacher in that way. And that wolf was a white wolf. So like the more I understand about the Medewan Lodge, the more I understand about my culture, the more I understand like my own name. And I always like joke with people that I haven't grown into it yet, because my name is like standing in all four directions, and I just always still feel like I'm running everywhere. not doing a whole lot of standing.
No, Well, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit and talk. In the name of trying to be absolutely respectful of you, I want to say, what is your what if we're having a conversation or I called you on the phone and I said hello, what would your preferred name be?
Most people still just call me Deb. Like a lot of Indigenous people will call me Maingan, but mostly people call me Deb.
Am I trying too hard if I were to call you Maingan? I feel privileged to be able to have conversations like this and somebody like you who has the patience not to hang up on me.
I think that's great. Like anytime anyone uses the language, I think is important, and it makes our ancestors kind of listen and be proud too. And like I did volunteer at the Kingston Indigenous Languages Nest, and I always think that anybody is welcome to learn our languages. Like you don't have to be French to learn French. You don't have to be Spanish to learn Spanish. So I don't think a person needs to be Ojibwe to use Ojibwe words either. I think the more people use the language, the better, and the more it will become commonplace, and the language speakers will feel that sense of pride, because there aren't very many places around that people get to see or hear our Indigenous languages in the Kingston community.
Well, Maingan, I'm totally glad to be talking to you. But the last thing that I'm getting people to make is what I'm calling a bag of possibles, which sort of is a tradition out of kind of bushcraft. But possibles just means essentials. And in the old days, there might have been somebody would carry their flint and steel in here. I carry a bunch of different stuff. That's my fire starter, which is a hand lens, and it's got the little if you want to. And I don't know. I've got just some other stuff in here. Some piece of a nickel and a caribou tooth and some needle and thread. And anyway, I wanted because I think it's a kind of a neat idea, and I guess I would say to the young people who are on this kind of workshop video that you can all the equipment you need, whether it's shoes or packs or tents or whatever it might be to go and venture, but you need resilience, and you need your possibles, you need your essentials, and this little bag would be set in that context. But I am aware that there are little biggies in different traditions. Like in the sailor tradition, they called it a ditty bag, and that was the what the sailor would have had for essentials to take, and it was usually made out of canvas and similarly put together, and that would be essentially what you would take with your set of clothes onto a ship. But I'm aware that there are other traditions of little bags, and that's why I wanted to talk to you and what you might be able to tell us about a similar or related tradition in the cultural context from which you come.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have in the because my background is Métis and Ojibwe. In the Métis tradition, we call the little bag Sakatumat. In Michif, it's Sakatumat. If it were like proper French, it would be sac à tout mettre, which means a bag to put everything in. And it's just a small one. And I don't have, like, I made a bunch a couple of years ago, but I gave them all away. But I have one that a friend made me here. So it's just like a little medicine bag. This one has like some red wool around the outside, and an old button, and a loop to stick on my belt, or it's too short. This one's too short to put around my neck. I usually make them so that I can put them around my neck, so I carry it close to my heart. So anyway, the Sakatumet is something that we quite often use with youth in the Métis culture. We have them make a little bag, and we have them put things in it that are meaningful to them. So as Indigenous people, things in nature all have a spirit to us, and those spirits help us. So quite often we encourage the young people that are making their first Sakatumet to find things in nature to put in it. So they might find a nice little shell that they want to put in there, or they might find a stone that is meaningful to them, or like some people have crystals, or This one, I just have tobacco in it right now. But we encourage them to find things out in nature to put in it that will give them strength, like when they're feeling stressed. And the way we use it as Métis is we have them, like when they're feeling stressed or anxious, or they need that extra little bit of like help from someone, and they're the only one there, then they hold on to that bag and get strength from knowing they've put ancestors into that bag, and those ancestors will help them. So drawing on the strength of like the rock or the shell or whatever they have put into their bag. And it's also something that we encourage them, like if they're writing a test or an exam and they feel that they need to have something in their hand, to like hold that in their hand, because like this one, when it's stuffed with tobacco, it's like stress ball or something. So it works in that way too. So they can sit there and like write their test and know that they're getting the help from like the tobacco that's in their thing, or the rocks or whatever they have put into it. For the Ojibwe tradition, I've given away my old medicine bags, but like as you wear medicine bags, they get more, they get darker and darker. So my students used to always want to see what I carried in my particular medicine bag. I haven't really checked what's in these medicine bags, but anyway, and I've got this like really old medicine bag that was in my grandmother's belongings. And so I'm thinking it probably belonged to my grandfather, that she had kept it and just not given it back to him. Anyway, I have it now. So when I was teaching, my students would quite often ask me to show them the contents of what was in my little medicine bag. So then I would just empty it out for them, and I would show them different things that I put in my medicine bag, and I would talk about the significance. I'm just emptying it out here on my desk so I can see what I've got in here. Okay, so in my medicine bag, I've got this little purple quartz. It's an owl, and my mom's name is Kokoko'o, which is owl. Well, it's actually, yeah, her name's Wise Owl, but so I have a little owl in there to represent my mom. And I like that it's like the purple color, because I think my dad's birthstone, my dad was born in February, and I think the birthstone for February is purple. I've got this little bead that, I don't know if you can see the color. It looks like the earth. It's
Oh,
blue,
yeah, it does too.
it's blue and green. So I think it's important. Maybe you can, yeah, I can see some of the green there. It's a blue and green bead that I carry around, because it looks like Mother Earth to me, and that's our first teacher, and it's important for us to look after her. So I keep that in there. I always have like a little piece of this is rose quartz. It doesn't look very pink probably on the camera, but it's a little piece of rose quartz, and it's like a symbol of love and caring. And it's something I would always have rose quartz. I have some big pieces of rose quartz. Whenever I was writing report cards, I'd always put rose quartz around me, so that I remember to put love into the report cards. Because sometimes when you're writing a report card, you want to talk about what a little turkey the person was or whatever, and you can't really do that. So you have to fill it up with love. I've got this is a little white wolf. So,
Oh, yeah.
well, it's not quite, it's kind of beigeish, but anyway, it's a little wolf. So that's kind of me and the teacher part. I have a tiger, a piece of tiger eye, because I think a tiger eye makes people feel braver and stronger. Like when my one son used to always have nightmares, and I used to always like make sure that he had his tiger eye beside his bed. It made him feel better, that he felt protected having like that rock beside him. have just a piece of crystal that's I see the crystal as like being pure and like my connection to the creator. I have a wolf tooth in there as well. Um, and I have this stone that was cut in the shape of a buffalo because nowadays education is our buffalo. And then I've got like pieces, I've got like tobacco, which is like spread out all over my desk right now in there as well. So I quite often change up what's in my medicine bag. So the kids always wanted to know what was in it and why I had it in it, why I had the various things in my medicine bag, because um, I carry it around as medicines, like to help me or help those around me are things that I put in the bag.
Can we
But I
just
have,
loop back? Medicine is our buffalo, or education is our buffalo. That
yeah.
was a kind of I'd never heard that term before.
Oh, well, like in the old days, it was the buffalo that, like, especially out on the prairies, the buffalo was what sustained everyone, like provided shelter and food and tools and stuff. And we don't have the buffalo anymore to do that. So we kind of have to get an education in
Hmm.
order to be able to have the tools and the houses and everything. So um, we say education is our buffalo now.
So I'm a non-Indigenous person doing this session with young people. I'm delighted to have your voice in there. Talk to me a little bit about um, when making a little bag out of leather and calling it a medicine bag or a sack to
Sakatumat.
Sakatumet. When does that become me stealing inappropriately from another culture?
Yeah. Well, I think that, um, like you said, like Indigenous people weren't the only ones to carry like little bags. And if you just like you're calling it a bag of possibilities,
Bag of possibles, yeah.
bag of possibles. So like I think if you do it in that way and you don't call it like a medicine bag, there might be some Indigenous kids there and say, oh, we have that, we call that a medicine bag, and that's okay. And then you can talk about like the medicine bag with them. But I don't think, like, unless like I think it's okay for Indigenous people to call them medicine bag, but I think for non-Indigenous people, like unless you like actually believe that these things are medicines like we do, then I think um, it's not something that you should be saying, well, we're going to be making a medicine bag, but calling it and like the Métis call it Sakatumat, which is not medicine. It's not called a medicine bag for the Métis. It's just a bag to put everything in. And that's I think that's something that's appealing to kids, to have a bag to put everything in, because then they have the option of choosing what to put in, and they don't necessarily need to call those things medicines. They're things that they find in nature, or they might find, I don't know, they might want to put a piece of Lego in there because they like to build, or whatever. I don't know what they're going to
Yeah.
put in it, but um, I think if you keep it with the name that you have, and I think you can say the Métis Sakatumat, because, well, I guess it's Michif Sakatumat. The language is Michif, um, because that's not like the Métis don't necessarily call it a medicine bag when they're calling it a Sakatumat.
But a Sakatumet would have things in it that would help along the way, or give good luck, or just things that are important to the person who holds the sack.
Yeah. And and for children, like we don't necessarily tell them to put stuff in there to build a fire or something, but as like adolescents, then they might want, like in their Sakatumet, they might want to have what's necessary to build a fire or something for survival. But
Yeah.
for young children, like it's not usually a good idea to encourage them to have stuff to build a fire.
Well, this is helpful. I really appreciate you taking the time. And man, when I was at the faculty, we did not have an elder in residence. I think it's a wonderful addition to the staff, an important addition to the staff. And I wish you well with your. I look forward to next time we could actually, or when we might have a cup of tea and have a conversation face to face. But I do want to say thank you for helping with this project, and it really has helped ground this little possible bag idea.
There you go. That's good.
Wonderful to see you. Thank you for tuning in at 9 o'clock this sunny morning, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks. Have a great day, James.
Bye-bye.
Bye.